You're listening to Empowering Testimonies of Faith with Coach Jeff Connors. Join Coach C, USA Strength and Conditioning Hall of Famer and Certified Health and Life Coach every Monday night at 7 for Empowering Testimonies of Faith as diverse individuals from various professions share their personal journey, leading them to spiritual strength through surrendering themselves to Christ. Coach Connors aspires to influence others to choose a healthy threefold lifestyle with spirituality as the powerful foundation. Now, here is Coach Connors.
Welcome to Empowering Testimonies of Faith with Jeff Connors. Our incredible and famous guest tonight is British actress, model, influencer, philanthropist, Eve Richards. Eve, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so honored you took the time out of your busy schedule to join me, and I'm specifically endeavoring to bring highly accomplished people like yourself to share your story, and then maybe more importantly, your faith and what kind of supported your story. So the things that come to mind when I take a look at your background and your bio, number one is giftedness.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to recognize. And then the other things would be your journey's been so exciting and I'm sure memorable in many ways, and also very impactful. So I see all those things in your background. So I would love to hear kind of how you started out as a young girl.
Okay.
And it seemed to be that it was just overflowing with positive influences and opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're right. I was very fortunate to have two loving parents. My mom was a judge, and she passed away when she was in her 50s when she died. She would have been in her 70s. She would have been 75 or so, but she died unexpectedly. And my father passed away unexpectedly last year at 78. So I would say from a very young age, my parents instilled in me and my younger brother the value of giving back to others, but also the value of working hard. Nothing comes easy in life. So from a very young age, even though my parents were very accomplished, they did not want me to take anything for granted. And my father made sure I worked hard. I excelled in school. My dad was very hard on me because he wanted to make sure that I understood how, life is hard. Nothing is given to you.
Well, I guess I'll ask this now because I had read where your podcast, you talked a lot about resiliency and overcoming challenges and some of the harder things in life. So do you feel like your faith got you through losing your parents?
Oh gosh, everything I do in life, I give everything to God. And every day when I wake up, I pray to God, because we live in a world where we're faced with a lot of adversity. We're faced with a lot of problems. And some days a person can see me. I mean, when I go out into the world, I try to be the best version of myself. But everything that I have to do, I give credit to God. Losing my parents, losing my mom when I was so young, 20 years ago, was one of the most difficult things I've ever experienced. And I have to say, it tested my faith. I've always believed, I'm Catholic and I go to church. I grew up going to church every Sunday because that's the thing to do. But when I lost my mom, I questioned God. Why did you have to take my mom away from me? But over time, once I started feeling better, I realized that there is that higher power who is there protecting me. And it's that same faith that I had that I was able to tap into when I lost my father last year. So every single day when I wake up, I thank God. When I go to bed, I thank God.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I saw that your journey included residence in a lot of different places, including different countries, and actually also Manhattan, which might be considered to be a different country in itself.
That's very funny. I consider myself someone who's international in the sense that I was born in London, but I grew up in Boston. So Boston is actually my adopted home. My father was originally from Cameroon in West Africa. My dad, from 16, had a scholarship to go into Harvard. My dad going to Boston. Subsequently, his family members, one after the other, moved to Boston. So Boston is technically home for me. However, I've had the opportunity of living in different cities, in different places. I've traveled a lot to New Zealand. I've been to Australia, Taipei. I loved learning about different cultures. I think that's what shaped me to who I am today.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me into my next question. What are some of your most memorable experiences in the cultural adaptation that you had?
Wow, that's a very good question. The one thing that I'll give credit to my parents is, regardless of where I was in the world, my parents always said to me, when you go somewhere, learn about the culture before you go, because you never know. There are certain things like here in America that I can wear and I can get away with it. And when you're visiting a place like, I'll give you an example. I was in Fiji. And in Fiji, when you visit the local villages, I love visiting with the villagers. I love visiting the villagers. Like, I stay in my resort, but I love to communicate and see the villagers. One of the villages that I visited in Fiji, they had a rule that when you get there, you had to respect the chief. And you had to use a scarf to cover yourself. It's in respect. So those are some of the things that I learned to adapt to, that wherever you are, you learn to respect those different cultures, because certain places may not accept jeans and other places may, so it's like learning to adapt to those different changes, to me, which is fine.
Gotcha. Well, I wanted to ask you, who influenced you toward acting and theater and the limelight as a young girl?
Good question. So my parents obviously wanted me to become an attorney from a very young age, and I thought that's what I was going to do. But because growing up with two lawyers, I had to grow up. Like, I had to be when I was 10, I was acting like someone who was 16 in terms of my thought process. And I realized at that age, at 10, that law was not what I wanted to do. And I wanted to escape from my parents, the expectations of wanting me to do this. And I would start reading about the movies or watching and dreaming about lights, camera. And I just realized, that's what I want to do when I get older. My mom was very supportive, obviously, but my dad was not. And I can see why. He did not want me to deal with the rejections. But I would say just watching things like, gosh, I can't even remember some of them, but just the fantasy of Hollywood, Gone with the Wind. And it just seemed like that fantasy world that I wanted to escape into. And the thought of becoming somebody else just seemed like, wow, I want to do that. So that's how it all started.
Gotcha. Well, my son, when he graduated from high school, decided that he wanted to go to Seattle Film School.
Oh.
So, we sent him there, and
Is he an actor?
No, he wanted to be an actor, and he had about a 15 or 20-second debut in one movie. But he went out there to LA as well, and kicked around a little bit. Of course, the cost of living out there was very high and it's very tough. And so, I've got a little bit of experience there with spending some money.
It's a very competitive industry, but like anything in the world, I think with regards to the cost, I lived in Manhattan. Manhattan is very expensive. I lived in San Francisco. San Francisco is very, very expensive. And so moving to LA just seemed like, it was equally, as expensive as the other cities as well. But I think in life, if you're passionate about something, regardless of how difficult it is, you just keep at it, right? And it may take a few years to get there, but it's like never giving up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough business, obviously, and for so many people who have stories about trying to be an actor. But I was just kind of wondering what exactly transpired to give you confidence. How did you gain confidence and become passionate toward this?
So confidence is something that I think I acquired over time. It doesn't happen overnight. The one thing that I never gave up on is the belief in myself, because my father always said to me, Eve, always believe in your ability. I may not be the best at it, but I can achieve whatever I put my mind to. I may not get to this level, but it's not about getting to that level. It's about seeing the progression, seeing the growth. And I think subsequently, I train with various acting teachers. Acting is not something that you do alone. I've been training for quite a while. And when I have a role, I have an acting teacher that I work with, Peter Alice. So I constantly have to train, and you have to do a lot of reading. But I think once you do it, the more you do it, it's like driving or anything, that the more you do it, the more comfortable you are. And it's like a sales job. Some you get and some you don't get, but it's not about me. It's just sometimes it's not the right fit.
Well, obviously you're gifted with beauty, but I wanted to ask about, I was also very impressed with how highly educated you are. And of course, with your mom and dad, that's some real impressive DNA. But talk a little bit about your education and various degrees that you have.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously my father there were 15 of them, my dad, including my father. So my grandfather, raising 15 kids was
Oh,
challenging. But the one thing that he emphasized to his kids was education, right? There were 3 sets of twins. My grandfather was a high school teacher. So everyone in my family, we come from that pedigree where education was something that my parents encouraged my brother and I to have, because if anything else, I can always fall back on something else. So I majored in political science because I got accepted into law school to do a JD, but I ended up not going to law school because I realized I was only doing it for my parents. It's not what I wanted to do. But education is something that I think is so, so essential. Even though I'm a working actor, I constantly look for opportunities to educate myself in different areas. I think the mind is a terrible thing to waste. So I'm always very curious, and I'm always looking for ways to get better.
yeah. I mean, you have 1 degree in speech, correct?
No, I don't have a degree in speech. I
Okay.
majored in visual science.
I thought I read that.
No.
And you also had some form of training in radio and TV. It was formal training. Is that true? Or was that just something else I read in the bio?
Maybe it's something else you read in the bio, but I've been training with various acting coaches. I
Okay.
trained with acting coaches. I trained with a woman called Sherry Carlson for about a year. And then I trained with a studio, ZA Studio, for 2 years. And then one of the co-founders, Peter Alice, is someone that I work with as well on a regular basis. So I'm constantly training.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I did some voice lessons as well, because again, acting is about working on your toolbox. So I'm constantly working on it to get better.
So if you were going to be a mentor to young girls aspiring to do what you do,
Mhm.
how would you design a path for them? What are some of the things that you might have done differently to make things a little easier? Or what are some of the things that you learned that you could pass on to someone, or maybe give them a toolbox to pursue this type of endeavor?
That's a good question. And I say this because several people reached out to me on Instagram. One young girl, Chelsea, actually, that I can think of, reached out to me and she said, I want you to mentor me. One of the things that I always say to young people is stay true to yourself. But the key is surrounding yourself with family, because this is an industry where you never know the type of success you're going to get. You can be very young and you can become very successful overnight. But my advice is always to surround yourselves with positive people who uplift you, because I stay grounded because I surround myself with my family members, and that's the best thing. There is all the parties and all of that, but at the end of the day, you need that core support system. And when I mentor young girls, that's the key that I tell them, like, hey, surround yourself with your family members, but also focus on educating yourself, because you want to educate yourself. It's a business where you can become an adult very quickly and you can start making a lot of money. But if you have those core folks in your life who believe in you, then I think you're good. You have the life that's in front of the cameras, but you also want to maintain a personal life as well.
How important do you think it is to be spiritually grounded?
It's very, very important, because you have to believe in the Lord. You have to believe there's a higher power. You have to believe there's someone protecting you. You know, every single day when someone goes to sleep, we never know what's going to happen. It's not something we think about, but it's the reality of the world we live in. And it doesn't matter how old a person is. You can be 5, you can be 6. And so having that faith to guide you. I've had some times when I wake up, I'm like, I'm not motivated. But I've got to believe in God. And I've got to believe that even on the days when I'm going through very bad days, there is God who can guide me. And I say to God, help me, guide me, protect me from all of this emotional turmoil that I'm going through. I need your guidance. I need you to help pick me up. So I think faith is so, so, so critical. I'm not going to sit there and try to preach to someone who doesn't believe in God, but it's something that helps me specifically.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your podcast and what your objectives are with your podcast.
So my podcast is called The Discovery Pod with Eve. It's something that I launched in April of 2025. My PR manager, Roger Neal, who's been in the PR industry for about 43 years, he co-produces the podcast with me. The goal of the podcast is basically like yours, is to share stories of folks who've gone through various adversities and came through the other way. So a good example is someone who was trying to get into the entertainment industry, or someone who's an athlete, or someone who's in business. But that person, I think we all have stories to share with the world. And I like to hear stories of resiliency. The podcast to me is a beacon of hope. I would love people to listen to stories and see themselves in it. I'll give you an example. There's a young guy who's my friend. He's 25. He's actually going to Yale to become a dermatologist. But he came from the Middle East. He was born in Beverly Hills. His name is James Kaplan. He grew up in Lebanon. His parents are Lebanese. He has a twin brother, but he realized that he was gay. And a culture like the Middle Eastern culture, that's something that's frowned upon. And he was able to come on the podcast and talk about his journey of adversity. And his story, to me, is going to help someone else who's struggling with their identity. I had someone else who is my friend, Chris Cisneros. He had an illness, and this is a guy who was a creative writer, had a wonderful career. For 8 years, he couldn't work, and he had to file for bankruptcy. Somehow, he picked himself up, and he started a brand. And those are the types of stories, because to me, those are stories that would resonate with anyone in the world. And those are the types of stories I love to share.
Yeah, I mean, I've had, I don't know how many podcasts I've had. I had a previous podcast where I had mostly all coaches and athletes that I coached.
Okay.
That was great. But I'm trying to be more diverse now, particularly having some females on.
I think it's a good thing, right? Because, hey, I mean, you've got something to share, but it's a story, the story of faith, the story of overcoming adversity. It is a global issue. My story is something that would resonate with someone here in America, or it would resonate with someone in India. That's how I look at it.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, so you've been in 30 films, and I was wondering, have you ever had to take a part that you really did not like that much, and you kind of had to force yourself to get into that role? How hard was that? I mean, can you give me an example of that if you've ever had that?
Yes, I think when you're starting out in the industry, because you're new to it, you find yourself taking jobs that you normally wouldn't take, because number one, in acting, it's all about getting the credit. And so you just take jobs because you just want to get the job and you want to know that you've got the credit. So people take you seriously. But where I am today, I'm in a better place in my life where I feel like I have the confidence, I've gotten the experience where I don't have to take something that I don't want to do. I like portraying roles of women who are powerful women, women who go through adversity but come out the other way, because acting is real life. And so I love to tell stories about strong and powerful women who overcame challenges. Or one of the parts that I played was a CEO, and it was a fun role, but it was a CEO with someone who had a son, but she was very controlling towards her son. And I don't have kids, but it was a good story. I love those powerful stories. I think maybe it has something to do with my background, coming from having two parents who are both in the corporate world as well.
Yeah, and I read a lot about empowerment, and of course that's a that's part of my podcast is empowerment. But
Yeah.
very specifically, you have been described as an empowered woman.
Yes.
And can you kind of tell me what that's about?
So empowerment could mean different things for different folks, but I look at empowerment as I use my social media platforms. I use Instagram, I use Facebook, uh, TikTok, or Twitter to share positive messages. We are faced with adversity every single day. I want people to come to my platform and see something positive. And so I share a pain and I turn that into a positive uplifting. Because if there's one person who comes to my channel and sees something positive, I would hope it improves their day. And it's the same thing that I have mentors as well, that if I'm having a down day and I speak to someone, that person helps to uplift me. And so that's what I use my platform for, where I would hope people will come and they would, when they think about Eve, they would think of me as someone who's a beacon of hope.
Yeah, and along those lines, you were on the cover of Womenpreneur US magazine, and you were basically listed as one of the top 20 empowered women.
And it's all subjective, right? Again, I look at it. I mean, it's a nice accolade, but I think that's all very subjective. But I'm glad that someone puts me. There were some very powerful women, CEOs of some wonderful corporations, and to be amongst those very powerful women to me was a wonderful accolade. But again, I think, again, my journey is about empowerment. When I lost my father, I took that situation, which was very difficult for me, and I put it out into the world, and I shared my pain with the world. But I shared the pain, but I'm also sharing the beautiful journey, which is taking pain and turning that into a beacon of hope. And so people could see the evolution of someone who was going through pain and was able to share with the world. Not that I wanted any empathy or sympathy, but because I was in so much pain from what had happened, I wanted to connect my story with others who were going through the grieving process. But somehow I was able to adapt and find a way to turn that negativity into a positive voice.
What I notice is, your image is so strong right now. How hard does the team of professionals around you have to work to keep your image up?
Wow, I think that's a good one. So we're in an industry where image is so critical. Image is so important. I mean, I have a PR manager who works on, terms of putting my name out there, but I also promote myself a lot because you can't really depend on someone 24/7. So I put myself out there. I mean, I have a good team of folks who try to get I'm a very positive, upbeat person generally. I think it's not a facade. It's not like I'm trying to sell something that I'm not. What you see is what you get. I think I'm a very genuine person. I'm someone who talks about the pain and someone who talks about the joys as well of life. We go through the huddles, the ups, the downs. So when it comes to the team, there's very little that they have to do to sort of put me out there because I'm very transparent with who I am. And I have a specific brand. They know my brand is very wholesome. I mean, yes, I do have a sexy image, but I mean, it's all about marketing. When you're trying to market yourself in an industry where you've got millions and millions of people, sometimes you've got to you want to set yourself apart. So if it means being a little, a little bold in terms of my fashion choices, it is what it is.
So what's the team look like? You have a hairdresser, a fashion consultant?
No, I don't have a fashion consultant because fashion is something that I've been very good at from a very young age. I've always had that knack for fashion. Everything that I wear, I select myself, but I have a makeup artist, I have a hairdresser. It's a small team, but I mean, I love fashion. I know exactly what I'm going to wear, but I also consult with my makeup artist, who's my friend, Lita, and she actually lives very close to me as well. So it helps to have someone who's a friend. Her family, her kids, her spouse will become friends, and so that helps a lot as well. I don't need to have a team of XYZ. It's just a small team. Obviously, when I have to do a movie shoot or whatever it is, a commercial or the podcast, because I'm in front of the camera, I use a makeup artist.
Yeah, your fashion is insane. I mean,
thank you. That's all me. And it doesn't take a lot of effort. I just usually wake up and I know exactly the image. Again, for me, fashion is like there are certain things I do. I exercise a lot. I drink a lot of water to stay hydrated. I pray. There are certain things that I do. And so then the night before, I tell myself, what am I going to wear? And I wake up in the morning. It really depends on my mood. If I'm feeling, so clothing for me doesn't take a lot of time and effort.
So do you have any specific designers that you kind of stick with, or do you have?
That's a good question. So I'm not the person who is, I need to wear this designer, Dolce & Gabbana. I go on a budget, and fashion for me is not about buying a designer outfit. Fashion for me is about buying what I think fits what I like. And so I try not to buy the most expensive. And I'll tell my audience, or I tell my friends that, okay, fine, if you have money to buy the designer outfit, wonderful. But it doesn't necessarily mean buying designer is what you should do. So I go both ways. I buy classic pieces in designers that would last forever. And I also buy very affordable outfits as well. So I do a mix match of different things as well.
Gotcha. Well, I want to ask you a little bit more about the film industry, and I wanted you to speak a little bit toward your character, Victoria Curry, in Surviving the Cartel.
Yeah, so Surviving the Cartel, I was very fortunate to work in season 1. My character, I played this Victoria's, my sister, Heavenly, how do I put it? She struggled with alcohol abuse. She was going through a divorce. Her husband, Frank, was a cop. Heavenly and Frank, my sister and her husband, just lost their daughter, Queenie. And so it was dealing with a situation, dealing with loss, and seeing my sister, who did not know how to cope, but was using alcohol to cope with grief. And those are real problems because people deal with that every single day. Yeah. When you deal with grief, me going through grief, losing my mom and dad without having a strong support system, I know how difficult it can be. And so my character was someone who was like the voice of reason. And I'm going back to film in January, season 3. And so it's exciting. So I don't know what's in store for my character yet.
Gotcha. Was there any special way you had to prepare for that role?
Yes, I think that speaking about that was 2021. Like anything that I do, I work with my coach to help prepare me for the role because acting is very, very collaborative. And in order to bring a character to life, you've got to work with someone else to help you bring the character to life. So I'm very fortunate to have someone that I work with.
Gotcha. Well, you've got an upcoming movie with some stars, including Cuba Gooding and a few other folks that I kind of recognize their names, but this is
David A.L. White, which I'm sure you know, David A.L. White.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a movie produced by his production company. David is actually the lead actor in the role. Jason Patrick is in it, Katrina Bowman, and quite a few others. I don't know how much I can say about the movie, but what I can say, it's action thriller, very exciting. My character is, she's, all I can say, she's a born killer. It's, that's all I can say. She's got a Cuban father who was an ambassador and he got killed. And she is a complex, very complex character, but it was fun to play such a complex role.
That's awesome. I'll be looking forward to seeing that. Can I say what the movie's called?
It's called, yes, it's out there. It's called A Line of Fire. So if you Google A Line of Fire, it comes out, I believe, in April of 2025.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. So do you enjoy diverse roles, or do you think you have a niche?
I do like diverse roles, but I think the niche for me is I like strong women characters because I think I'm not going to say I'm a type A personality because I'm somewhat mellow, but I do enjoy, we live in a society where, I'll give you an example. And so people always looked at me and never really knew where to place me. Like they wanted to put me in a box. Is she Black? Is she mixed? Is she this? And I think because of that, where sometimes people try to use that against you, and I never wanted anyone to put me in a box. I'm Eve.
Right.
I'm who I am. You either like me for who I am or you don't like me. Not every role is going to be good for me. Some roles I'm going to shine in it because I can thrive in those roles, because it's something that is true to my heart. And so people always wanted to put me in a box, but now I gravitate towards roles of, again, a woman who overcomes adversity. She's struggling, but somehow she's able to pick herself up. And I'm getting into a space in my life where I could start producing my own movies as well. And so it's a beautiful place to be.
Awesome. Well, you have been nominated for a Global Icon Award, and you also won the Global Icon Award in London not long ago. And what's the criteria there?
I don't know what the criteria was, but I know I got nominated and I won an award, which I was in London about 2 weeks ago, and I received the Multifaceted Talent Global Icon Award by this wonderful organization called Women of Heart. I think the founder of the organization, Dr. Desiree Richardson, has done such an amazing job highlighting stories of not just women leaders, but men and actually kids from all over the globe. And so it was such a wonderful experience to be surrounded by such accomplished individuals. And there was a kid who was 4, 5, who won an award, the recognition for publishing over 3, 4 books. And it was quite amazing to see such young leaders at such a young age. So it was very inspiring.
Gotcha. Well, my background is I was a collegiate strength and conditioning coach for a long, long time. I had a personal training business. I've done a lot of that over the years as well. And now I went and got I got a little bit bored, so I went out and got a health and fitness
Wow.
coach certification.
That's amazing.
But our mutual friend has a branding idea for me, but I'm not going to reveal it right now.
Are you talking about Tony?
Yeah.
So what do you have? Tony, yeah, Tony, and I gotta say, Tony introduced me to you. So Tony's gonna watch this.
Absolutely. Well, we got something that we're kind of we got cooking, and I'm excited about that. But
nice. You can't share.
Well, I'm trying to match a couple things here: a ministry, bringing people to Christ, and also making sure that people understand that the body is a temple, and so realizing how important it is for them to take care of themselves and be fit. And of course, take care of their spirituality as well, which is actually related to that. So my question is, what is your fitness regime?
Oh, it's funny you say this because, Tony, I'm going back to Tony. Tony and I are, working on a book together. And one of the things I really admired about Tony was when he talked about his fitness routine. I believe in exercise. When I lost my mom, exercise was the one thing that I think helped keep me. I was so saddened by her death that once I started exercising every single day, the adrenaline sort of kept me going. And so it's a part of my life. It's a part of my routine. I love the way it makes me feel when I exercise. It's a great way to get started because I'm a morning person. I like the discipline of how it makes me disciplined. I go out, even if it's a 45-minute, I do a 30-minute cardio, I do 10 minutes of weights, and I do stretching. But I enjoy it, and I cannot live without exercise. I mean, there have been periods where I've gone a few days without exercising. Like I recently got sick with a cold, and I'm actually recuperating, and I wasn't able to go exercise. But I try to do stretching at home as well. But it's something that for me has helped me mentally. I'm able to sleep well, and it's a part of my life. It's something that I cannot live without, and I cannot. I mean, people think, it's just about, eating clean. Yes, I eat clean, but exercise for me it keeps me mentally zen.
Gotcha. I understand that. Do you have a personal trainer?
I don't have a trainer, but I do use trainers every now and then. I use just to help keep me mentally, just focused. When I go off and I don't exercise for about a week, I call my trainer and I work out with them as well. So I don't use them as much, but I do use them like once a month.
Gotcha. Well, I wanted to also mention a couple of these other magazines that you've been on the cover of Maxim.
And that's coming out in I think on December 17th.
Okay. And then what blew me away was Cosmopolitan.
Yes, that was a fun one.
So, I'm a little bit starstruck with that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it was a fun one. I thought it was beautifully done. It was a beautiful article, and I want to thank the team who, worked on it. It was great. I really liked it. I think, again, magazine, being on the covers, again, it's an accolade of celebrating who I am. And I thought the Cosmopolitan was great because of the outfit. It was just such a fun, shoot. And I got to give the photographer credit. Dan Kennedy was the one who actually took that photo of me. And it turned out to be a very iconic photo. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, Eve, I know you've had a long day, even though you're 3 hours behind me. So I'm going to go ahead and close it up. And I just want to tell you, just how honored I am to have had you on here. It's going to be really exciting when I'm watching a movie with my wife and say, hey, we know her. We know that movie star.
Thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you. And this comes out on Monday, did you say?
Yeah, it'll be on YouTube Monday night at 7. And of course, it'll be archived on there where anybody can go to it. I've probably got close to 100 of them on their archive.
Okay.
But this particular YouTube, I think this is episode 15 or 16. So I just started this podcast not long ago, but I've got a whole lot of guests coming. I've got Ray Flynn, the former mayor of Boston, who I'm sure you're familiar with.
Did Tony do the intro?
Well, Tony's the one that, of course, hooked me up with him.
Yes, I know Tony talked about him as well. So Tony is like, yeah.
Well, I've talked to the guy that kind of schedules for him and so forth. But he was an ambassador to the Pope.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah, a great athlete. I mean, so I'm really excited to have him on as well.
Yeah.
And then of course,
that's a great one. Wow, amazing. I mean, what a wealth of wisdom that he has. Like that's good for you.
Yeah, Eve. So if you can help me grow my podcast, hey, I appreciate it.
Of course, I'm gonna promote it on my social on Friday. I'm gonna put out a link and just I'll start promoting, and of course when it comes out on Monday as well. So I really enjoyed talking to you. I think you being a coach and now doing this is fantastic.
Thanks so much. Well, we'll go ahead and close it out. All glory, honor, and respect to our Lord Jesus Christ. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you in your next movie.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you again.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Join Coach C, USA Strength and Conditioning Hall of Famer and certified health and life coach every Monday night at 7 for empowering testimonies of faith as diverse individuals from various professions share their personal journey leading them to spiritual strength through surrendering themselves to Christ. Coach Connors aspires to influence others to choose a healthy threefold lifestyle with spirituality as the powerful foundation.